right. I think we are live, people. Thank you very much for tuning in. I don't know if I need to introduce you, but I will nonetheless. Let's welcome Baba Brinkman to the show. Baba Brinkman, welcome to Statistics.
I'm very happy to be here. I've been following your journey since day one, and it's great to finally be able to connect.
Yeah, I'm very glad we managed to do that. In the end, we had to all go into quarantine, but we did it, and that's great.
This has been a good. This past year has been a good application use case for Bayesian statistics, and the priors and predictions around public health interventions and what their outcomes will be. This is why we care, right? Because it matters.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dive like almost from now. But first I wanna thank people who are tuning in. This is autumn. This is the first time Learn Based Stat is going live, and really is an experiment. So we'll see. Please comment on YouTube to tell us if you have any troubles or any questions, most importantly. And also very probably at the end, we'll do something freestyle with Baba. So if you have some topics that you think it would be interesting that he raps about live in front of you, well, think about them and throw them in the comments at the end of the show. And yeah, I want to thank also Ariel Abril and Tyler Birch personally, because they helped me set all that technical thing together. This is just so fun to host the author of the podcast theme song, and so thank you for tuning in. I think this is the closest to social interactions we have right now. And so Baba, let's dive in. Let's start by your background, actually, because I love it. You studied comparative literature and oral poetry, right? So
yes.
First, how come? What's your story, basically?
Well, I was a poetry nerd in high school. Literature was my favorite subject, and I was immersed in the Romantics and the Renaissance poets. And I was also a rap fan. I didn't really think of them as related. I was like, I read poetry and I respond to it really positively, and I listen to rap all day, but I just thought of them as different genres. And then when I was in college, I had this aha moment where I was like, actually, rap today is kind of what Shakespeare was for his day. They're the sort of rhymed lyrical storytellers. And that was when I was around 18 or 19. And that was the point at which I was like, well, if that's the case, maybe I could rap too. Maybe I could be the hyper literate, like bookworm rapper. There's not really a niche for that in hip hop yet, but who knows? People might respond well to it. So I started writing rhymes, and they were all based on anything I learned as part of my college degree or as part of my reading habits that I thought people would want to know about. And so then I went deeper into literature from that perspective. I was kind of all in on rap by midway through my undergraduate degree. But then I was like, am I ready to just pursue a rap career yet when I've only been doing this for a couple of years? So I decided to go ahead and get a master's. And my rationale at the time was, if I'm going to be a rhymed storyteller in the rap genre, and if I want people to understand how rap fits into the oral traditions of the world, including English literary ones, but also, of course, Africa and where the original roots of hip hop culture came from, and everywhere around the world has oral storytelling traditions. I thought, well, I could do a master's and unpack that and sort of study the history of rhyme storytelling across comparative literature and oral traditions, and help people understand how hip hop fits into that as a contemporary phenomenon. So I may be the only person who went and got a master's degree just to be better informed on the connections with hip hop and literature. But that's really what I did. And then after I finished my master's, then I went in all in on rap at that point, a couple years later.
Yeah, this is awesome. I really love how, so basically, like, yeah, you were you were into rap and music like from the beginning, right? This was really something you almost knew at the moment that you wanted to make a living out of that.
Well, I wouldn't quite say that actually. I went for many years as a fan of rap, but not a participant. So you'd say like age 10 until 18, like my whole teen years, I went to rap concerts. I listened to rap songs. I watched rap music videos. I bought every CD, but I was like, I'm a consumer of this culture and I'm an appreciator of this culture, but I'm not a participant in this culture. Even though I'd go to the rap shows and throw my hands up, I was like, I'm a suburban white boy from Canada. I have a middle-class background. Rap is, people like me who try to do rap never do it well. So I'm not going to even try. And then it was only in my late teens when I was like, there might be another way to do it that would make sense for someone like me. And that's when I made that literature connection. And that was the point at which I was like, well, maybe I could actually contribute to hip hop culture and not just be an appropriator if I do it completely differently and make people realize, how like broaden their horizons of what rap can do and what it is. And so that's sort of, once I rationalized that mode of participation as, this is my 18-year-old brain being like, how can I get into rap without being a total poser? If I do it so differently that everyone's like, huh? And then they're like, oh, actually, that's pretty cool. Then I can claim to have actually staked out new territory. And that's sort of, that I'm 42 now. And that was like, 23 years ago. And I've never had a different plan since that moment. I've just been doing, different variations on quality hip hop about topics you would never expect hip hop to cover.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting actually, and so as you said, at least when you started, you weren't the typical person to go into and to try to become a professional rapper. So I'm curious, did you expect some pushback or mainly indifference from people? Like, how was it? Like, how were their starts?
Well, skeptical, let's say. When I walk down the street, people are not like, there goes a rapper. I don't really come across as a rapper in all of my demeanor and manifestations and inflections and everything. For me, it was more like I'm absolutely all in on the craft of hip hop, and aspects of my personality are hip hop and other aspects less so. And, I gotta kind of prove it every time, so, and I kind of knew that from the beginning as well. Like everyone's going to not think I'll be good, and I need to show them I'm good again and again and again. And that's totally fine. That's just going to be part of the process. And, I wasn't good when I started. I was a good writer, but I was not a good performer. So at the beginning, I was like, I'm studying William Blake and John Skelton and Geoffrey Chaucer and, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And I'm like, okay, that's their technique. Now this is Jay-Z's technique, and this is Notorious B.I.G.'s technique, and this is Nas's technique. And I'm like analyzing all the rhyme patterns and the rhythm and the syncopation and the structure. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to create my own technique. And it's like a hybrid of all of them. And, learning how to write lyrics that I liked the way they flowed was the first step. Being able to perform them in a way that wasn't awkward was a whole nother learning process. I kind of started thinking like, it's a verse form. I'll learn the verse, and assuming it would be 80% composition and 20% performance. And it's, further than the opposite. However awkwardly the lyrics are written, if they're performed the right way, people are going to respond. And the writing is important, but it's secondary to the experience of how people react to you, like charismatically and intuitively and viscerally. And that took me years and years and years to learn.
Okay. Yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up question. But how do you know, or how do you define a good rapper? What did it mean to you, and what does it mean to you today to say, okay, now I know I can rap, I know I'm a rapper, and I can completely accept that some people maybe don't see me as one, but I know I am.
So I hope the audience is appreciating how deeply the conversation relates to the Bayesian model for prediction about the world, because this is what it's all about, isn't it? And when I learned Bayesian mathematics, or at least the sort of logical framing of how it works, I was like, that's what I've been doing the whole time. I was a teenager and I was like, what's the probability of me being able to be a rapper? And what's the probability assessment in the mind of every audience member that sees me get on stage? Low. Yeah. And then my job is to adjust their priors and their expectations so that the beginning low expectation of talent when they first see me, which is a kind of prejudice, really, because it's identity based, then gets adjusted until by the time they're a couple minutes into the performance, they're like, holy crap, this is awesome. Now I expect the rest of it to be awesome too. So there was a process where I thought I sounded good enough in private. Like I was like, this stuff holds up. These are good lyrics and I can flow them. And I was like, I expect people to react positively to this, but no one had heard it yet. And then also like trial and error, right? Do the show, watch the crowd, see how they're responding, figure out like what parts they really responded well to and less, go back and be like, okay, let's adjust my process to get more of the good and less of the bored. And, so I kind of did take like a scientific hypothesis and testing. Actually, one of my songs from my evolution show is called Performance Feedback Revision. And that I use that as an analogy for how evolution works, where like an organism's phenotype is its performance of its genes, which are the script, and the revision takes place in the success or failure in an adaptive evolutionary framework. And the revision is how the genome changes over time as natural selection does its work, which is really analogous to like how you learn to be a better performer, right? You like die in front of an audience, and that's natural selection doing its thing. And then you resurrect the performance as a sort of offspring of the original one, but with slight mutations until you don't die in front of the audience. And suddenly you're thriving in front of the audience, and the audience is like, I'm going to tell everyone how good this is. And that's the proliferation of your memes via a trial and error analogous evolutionary process. So, I have had several sort of phases of obsession in my life. For a while, it was literature and literary history and how hip hop ties in. Evolutionary theory was next. And then with the Consciousness Project, the probabilistic Bayesian framing for everything from science to even just perception and active inference as a way the brain works really, really engrossed me. And so that's, a long scientific answer to a short biographical question.
I love that. And that's actually, quite striking to me how, because I use, in the world before where we could go meet people, I used to do some theater, and so it's funny because what you say is like very similar actually to how you know that your show is working or not, and it's basically how the audience react, and like what you're saying actually looks a lot like the process of how people doing stand-up, like test their shows and jokes and so on. But I really didn't know about that this was a thing in rap.
Yeah, and it really is almost core to hip hop and the ethics of hip hop culture, because some art forms are more rarefied and elite. They're like, the Juilliard entry exam will tell whether you're good or not. And if the common people don't understand what you're doing, ballet dancer or opera singer or abstract expressionist, then they are merely unsophisticated, but we recognize the quality. That's one kind of art, but that's not hip hop. Hip hop, you move the crowd. So you asked me, like, how do you know who's a good rapper? I watch people react to the way they rap. If they sell millions of records, they've got something, but that might be the product of marketing machines in the sort of MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice mode. But it's something about a live show and just getting people off the chain in the crowd. That's the thing that I always responded to the most in hip hop. And really, like, a lot of rappers talk about that. They're like, MC means move the crowd, or like forget what you've done. If you've got skills, reveal it. And there's this whole messaging in hip hop culture because a lot of them came up through freestyle battling and ciphers and sort of street level performance. And it's like no credentialism here. You know, who cares what you achieve? Get on the stage and show what you can do in this moment with this crowd. And that's all that matters. And I always really respected that and loved the sort of, you know, the democratization of it. You know, it's about the people, and it should be. And so that's why I've resonated with the Canterbury Tales as well, because Chaucer has this thing where the audience of pilgrims decide what's a good story in the Canterbury Tales, and some of the high class sort of more you know, respectable pilgrims don't do good stories, and the lower class ones sometimes kill it. And that's the story of hip hop, right? It's like the come up, you know, people that are not expected to make it suddenly achieve fame and fortune through their talents and their ingenuity.
Oh, yeah, that's really fascinating. I love that. And for listeners here, well, you didn't have the introduction that will be in the podcast version of this recording, but yeah, basically, what Baba is talking about Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. It's like it was one of your first, I said maybe not composition, but it's something you really developed. Like I think it was your master thesis, right? That you then adapted to rap composition, right?
That's right. Yeah, and on my first record, I had one of the songs was based on Chaucer's Pardoner's Tale, and so it was around that time that I was really like rewriting the Canterbury Tales into rap as a project. That was my first sort of major breakout project, was the rap Canterbury Tales. And, you know, the first thing where I was like, I can do something different, and I can, you know, I can make a living doing this. Like people will buy a ticket to see a rap version of the Canterbury Tales, and I don't need another job. I just need to tour around the world and turn people onto medieval literature and entertain them. And I was like, this is the best job ever. It's all I want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, how did you then? Because you said also rap is based on techniques. Like and I can guess that. I mean, I've never rapped, but
it's not too late.
Yeah, but not now. It would be pretty lame. But I mean, this is based on techniques and so on. So I'm wondering, how did you then go out and learn that? Because I don't think there is a master that you can get from rap techniques. So
yeah, that's right. It's one of the great art forms that can't be taught. And yeah, you know, I was already writing poetry. Like I was a poet all through high school, and you know, I was composing like sonnets and villanelles and free verse, and you know, so it was a short. You know, when I made that whole like rap is poetry connection, I was like, okay, this is the next form. You know, I've already written a lot of sonnets. I'm going to try writing 16-bar verses of hip hop with multi-syllable rhyme schemes. So you know, that's what I meant when I said I sort of started with the writing challenge. On the performing side, you know, that was the hard part. And I just got some instrumentals. Sometimes they sell a single on vinyl or on a CD, and the instrumental will be on the B side. So I found a bunch of those in record stores, even on CD, and it's all I played. So then I'd be like driving around, and if I was in my car, all that would be playing would be hip hop beats, and I'd just be freestyling all day. It would just be like, you know, as I drive, I see a man on the side of me. This is Baba Brinkman. I'm trying to learn how to ride the beat. Yeah, that's right. I'm just trying to rock right. Oh, I better stop my car right now. There's a stoplight. Yeah, that's it. I'm rapping like I'm Jay-Z, and this guy in the car next to me is looking like I'm crazy because I'm talking to myself, but I don't care because I'm straight rapping. One of these days I'm 18, but I'm really gonna make it happen. And you know what, like I was the crazy guy in his car just jabbering away and everywhere I went. But I really did it in private for a long time. You know, I didn't want anyone to hear me rapping until I knew I was going to be good enough. And yeah, that's it. And then it was about 5 years from the first time I kicked a rap until not until I performed, but until I started recording tracks in the studio and like said, I'm gonna fully bust out with this.
Yeah, okay, but that makes sense. So it inspires me to follow up questions, but like the first one would be, I can really see that there is clearly an element like in stand-up. I love the comparison you made with evolution, like biological evolution with rap and stand-up performances, actually, because you come on the scene and on the stage and you can die in front of the audience, and there is really an element of building up your self-esteem to a good level, but not too high to still be able to progress, but a good self-esteem so that you are able to go in front of people, and even if you die on the stage, you die on the stage. You don't die, period. Like, you
That's
know
right.
that it's just on the stage, and that these problem that you had, this bad performance that you had, you can turn that into an opportunity to become a much better rapper. But I mean, I can guess that this is a psychological process that you have to go through, right? And that can
Yeah,
take time.
and like, if you die time, after a while you quit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
dying on stage is only a path to greatness if you're also getting accolades sometimes,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you're getting heckled sometimes, or booed, or people are bored sometimes, or walkouts sometimes, and you're paying attention to the difference. But I feel like the latent talent was there, and the passion was there, and the dedication was there, but the technique, as you said, is, that was the thing that was a learning curve for me. But yeah, when people respond well. And also, I grew up in a very supportive community. Like, I'm from Vancouver. I have dozens and dozens of first cousins and a couple of siblings and lots of friends. So when I first came out with rap, I was like, you guys want to hear this? And everybody was my friend, and they would be like, wow, that's really cool. You should keep doing that. Don't quit your
Yeah.
day job. But they were an indulgent audience. And that gave
Yeah.
me the
Yeah.
space to grow. And, hey, I got another one. Can I try it on you guys at family gathering, or, community talent show down the road, or whatever? And, but really, that is actually a very hip hop process as well, right? First you impress your friends, then you impress your block, then you impress your city, and then you impress the world. And if you can't impress the first levels, you're probably not going to get to the last one. But some blocks are harder than others, and I
Yeah.
didn't have people like ragging on me the first few times. So in a way I was kind of sheltered. But when you're sheltered at the start of any kind of arts career, you'll find out quick, once you go into the wild, whether you were too sheltered and not well prepared, or whether you actually got your confidence built up to the right level to be able to impress strangers. And there was some friction in there. Like, I did a festival in Canada in 2003, and I sold out my whole run. All the seats were full, big standing ovations, applause. So I was like, this is the best. I'm killing it. And then I booked myself into some festivals overseas, and then I'd play to like 3 people, and one of them would leave, and I'd be like, oh, this is way harder than I thought it was, But by that point, I had already had a taste, and I was very sure that this is what I wanted to do. So then it was just come back better, come back better, come back better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually related to a question we got from Alex Spires. And he's asking, basically, I put it on the screen there, and he's asking, how often do you feel that you died in front of the audience?
I have died 1,000 deaths. Been resurrected. Yeah, I mean, like, I started rapping at sort of 18, maybe 19. So, the first 5 years were rocky, but I kept at it. And good thing there wasn't YouTube and viral video back then, because you would have seen a lot of me sucking at rap shows. They're vivid memories for me, like, I would love to see a video that someone randomly took, but there were no smartphones either at that time. So there, as far as I know, there's no video of me completely sucking on stage, but I did. And by the time I was good, I started getting attention, and the attention was mostly for the fact that I was good. Actually, there's one somewhere online. I'm not sure if I kept it, but I probably have it in some folder somewhere. I did a festival my first year of professional performing, and a reviewer came and just totally ripped it apart. Said it was like the stupidest thing he'd ever seen, and it was so awkward. And he actually gave me something he called the Golden Albatross Award for the greatest degradation of the arts that he had seen at the entire festival. So the thick skin both has to come from getting from dying on stage and having audiences tune out, but also harsh reviews. And I've had a lot. But they thicken your skin. And actually, I just took like in my literature when I was going forward to future festivals, I would put like winner of the Golden Albatross Award on my posters because it sounds cool until you think about it. It's like as long as you don't have a literature degree and know about the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, then you will actually think an albatross sounds like this would be like an Oscar or something. So anyway,
I would not have guessed that you could have told me that, and I can put that into the introduction of the show if you want. I should probably. And yeah, actually, but now that makes me think. But then, how do you? Because you have to get a thick skin. But then, how do you filter good negative comments? Like how do you know that when someone is telling you something that's negative about a performance, this is actually something to remember and to improve your model, basically? Because it's really related to statistical modeling.
Absolutely.
Like, statistical modeling also has an art element to it, so it's like you really have to fail. You basically, what I often say is that when you're building statistical models, all your model will fail except the last one. And so you have really this survivor bias in books and blog posts and so on, where you only see the last element, the model that worked, but you don't see all the models before that failed. And so when you're a beginner, you're like super intimidated because you're like, but I can't do that. Like these guys are really magicians. I'm not able to come up and do a model right from the first time. And then also when you have your model ready and you're quite happy with it because you think it's good enough, you also have to be able to listen to negative comments. So to get back to you, how do you do that then? And how do you do to not have too thick a skin? That's my question.
Yeah. Well, I was raised in a culture that had ego as an enemy. That was always an idea about like, I was like Buddhist and Taoist and Hindu spirituality. A lot of people would go to ashrams and do meditation and stuff. It's all about the ego and how the ego will tell you that you need everyone to like you, but that's actually like an ephemeral path to suffering, because really positive and negative feedback can't touch you, or neither of them need necessarily shape who you think you are and stuff. So that messaging has been with me since before I rapped, and I took it into rap with me. So I was like, I'm going to pay attention, but I'm also going to, try to think rationally about people's motives. And that's another Bayesian, there's models and models and models, right? You're adjusting your model of how good you are based on the feedback you get, but you also have a probability model of whether the person giving you the feedback has ulterior motives, or whether, if there can't, you got to discount when your mom says you're good, you discount the relevance of that statement. And, some people clearly just didn't like rap. When I get bad feedback from someone that loves rap, it cuts me way deeper, and I'm way, I take it way more serious than when people just don't like rap and also don't like me. Because what are you going to do? That's my that's my chosen genre. Or some people just, they like rap, but they don't think white people should do it. And that, so what are you going to do? Like if you don't think there ever could in principle be a white rapper, then why would I care what you think of me? And so, I would try to apply that analysis to each person, but I would also, take friends' constructive feedback seriously. And it would always be, all right, okay, I'll try that. That's good feedback. Like, actually, here's a perfect example. When I put out my first rap record, one of my family friends that I grew up with said, let me tell you something. I really like your music, and I think you've got real potential. The songs that you write about, like, falling in love and being frustrated and family dramas and what you think about society, I love all those songs. The songs that you write that are recursive and about your journey as a writer learning to write, I don't need those songs, and I really took I thought about that for a while. I was like, that it really is like, it's like someone who gets up and does a speech, like a TED talk, and they're like, you wouldn't believe how long it took me to write this TED talk. I thought about this version and I thought about that version, but instead I settled on the version you're about to hear. it's like, just delete that from your script. You know, we don't need to know it. That's your journey. So I, you know, that bit of feedback I got in 2005 on the first record I made me always check my writing to see whether I was being narcissistic and solipsistic about like making the drama that I experienced learning to write, you know, making other people experience it with me. It's kind of like telling people your dreams, you know, like your dreams only matter to you. They're boring to everyone else, but it's really hard to, you know, it's really hard to get your head around that because they really matter to you. So yeah, let me tell you this dream I had. And if it's a friend, they'll be like, all right, if you want me to listen, I'll listen.
No, that's funny. Yeah, okay. That, I mean, that's so many topics to unwrap. But actually, first I have another question from Corey Whitney. It's actually a funny question. Thanks a lot, guys, by the way, for sending your questions. That's really awesome to see you participate. So thanks, Alex, and then thanks, Corey. So he's asking whether there are any frequentist rappers, and if you have converted any frequentists through musical hip-hop intervention.
That's a great question. And the answer is no, but I hope one pops up. You know, when I was researching the Bayesian track, you know, I came across the animosity between the Bayesians and the frequentists. And I thought of, you know, working some lyrics into the song about how frequentists are the dinosaurs of the statistical world or something like that. But I decided it was too rarefied of a debate to put in lyrics where I was really just trying to break the concept to new people. And you know, people, not everyone needs to know about the inside baseball, but it would be very funny.
Yeah, that would be. But that's actually interesting because, like when we, for instance, when we do, like, for instance, workshop or classes or stuff like that, and we introduce Bayesian statistics to new people, to beginners, we're actually not talking a lot about this whole debate about frequentists and Bayesian. I think I agree with you. It's just the concepts and the philosophy behind the reasoning of Bayesian statistics is what matters most, and that's the most powerful and the most interesting, and that's also the most intuitive. So that way you get people hooked better, and also that's the most important in the end, because you turn to Bayesian statistics because you're attracted by the philosophical underpinnings of
yes. Almost more so than anything I've come across. The only other thing, you know, I talked about like my phases of obsession, but like when I learned the details of natural selection and evolutionary theory, I was like, oh my God, I look at the world so differently now. You know, the thing you said, survivor bias, you know, you like every tree is the descendant of all of its successful ancestors, and all the variants that didn't reproduce didn't end up having their trees. And it's the same of every organism. And, you know, it just makes you like look at everything in the natural world via the process. And it's the same with Bayesian statistics. When I learned about it, I was like, everything is prediction all the way down. It is very intuitive, isn't it? Because we kind of do like make predictions intuitively constantly about what's going to happen if I do this and what's going to happen if I do that. And it's just putting a mathematics around something that every person can relate to. One of the things that I really found was fun about that Good Bayesian song is that I wrote the chorus and one verse, just verse one. And then I was like, you know, this is big. This is like, I wonder if other rappers would relate to this. So I sent it to some friends, and I sent it to Lars and Megaran. And I was like, I'm doing a song about Bayesian stats. Like, would you be interested in guesting? And both of them wrote back to me right away. And they're like, yes, I love Bayesian stats. And they both came back, like they came back with these verses where they were relating all the concepts of probability to their experience as rappers, just the way I had. So, you know, when they came back with their rhymes for the track, I was like, you know, I knew it. This is what rappers feel on the inside. They just didn't have quite the right, like, epistemological framing to put around it. And that's what the Bayesian worldview gives you. So, you know, that was what made me enthusiastic about putting it on the record. And also, I don't know how much you've gotten into the sort of Bayesian brain hypothesis, the predictive coding model of how perception and experience works. But I thought it was a really interesting I mean, I would almost say like coincidence, but is it a coincidence? You know, like the scientific method works on a way that's perfectly analogous to the way that our unconscious sensory processing occurs. I mean, that's a pretty sort of deep resonance, isn't it? Like we're not seeing anything. We're just taking in binary ones and zeros signals of neurons firing, and our brain is making a statistical inference on what the probable cause of those particular colors and shapes and light patterns are, and then forming an image internally. But it's all a model building process within the brain.
Yeah. That reminds me. Well, first, this is also tied up also with the philosophy you said you were coming from. Also, like I think the Buddhism philosophy of that, and like I can see really parallels with that. And second, like is it also the very beginning of Good Bayesian? There is this extract from a conference, right, or talk, and it's talking exactly about that, right?
Yes. So the person who taught me about Bayesian inference and the Bayesian brain is Professor Anil Seth. He's at the University of Sussex. He has a book coming out soon called Being You. I recommend everyone follow him on Twitter and check out. And the TED Talk is called How Your Brain Hallucinates Your Reality. And so that's a quote from his lecture that he gave, and it is all about that concept. It was Sean Carroll's book, The Big Picture, that gave me the sort of scientific method version of Bayesian reasoning. So, you know, I learned the brain version from one set of research papers, and the, you know, the sort of skepticism and scientific method version from another, but they both touched on consciousness. So I was like, this is going to be the running theme of my consciousness album now.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks. That's great. That's more on my reading list first, and second, I add these two links to the show notes because I'm sure people will be interested. Yeah, and actually, I'd like to go back a bit later about how do you actually write your songs and how do you go about documenting them and so on. But first, I'd like to zoom out and ask you why you are rapping about science topics, actually, because as we said, you're not coming from a science background, right? So you're coming from a poetry and literary background. And so why are you, and yet you're doing an amazing job, you know, popularizing scientific topics. I mean, because like I'm talking about Good Bayesian, but there are a lot of other songs that I love in your repertoire. And so yeah, why are you rapping about scientific topics and methods, and what motivated you and what still motivates you?
Well, I got into rapping about science via an invitation to do it. Basically, a scientist saw the Canterbury Tales show and wrote to me and said, "Have you ever thought about doing Darwin? You know, Darwin needs explainers too." And so yeah, that was Dr. Mark Palin. He was at the University of Birmingham at the time, and you know, he was working on a book called The Rough Guide to Evolution. So he was, you know, there's a Rough Guide series, and so he was the one. He put it to me as like a proposal. He said, "I'm working on the Rough Guide to Evolution. You should make the Rap Guide to Evolution as a complement to my book that explains all of the details of how natural selection works, because the general public is confused." And he laid it out sort of so reasonably, like, you know, you explain the Canterbury Tales, how about explaining evolutionary theory? I just loved the idea, and I was already a fan of, you know, I was reading like Jared Diamond and E.O. Wilson and Richard Dawkins, you know, just like part of my general interest reading. So I was already an evolution aficionado, but didn't have any education in it really. And so it was a 6-month crash course learning process of read every popular science book I can get my hands on and write rap songs about the thesis of each book. And then, you know, and then I came to England for the Darwin Bicentennial in 2009. Mark helped me to set up a tour where I was performing at a bunch of venues, and it was, you know, I'd never done evolution rap before, but it got a really great response. And, you know, just kind of cascaded from there, you know, festivals, and I won an award at a festival for doing it. And really, like, the reason I'm here right now, I'm in New York. I've been here for 10 years. I moved here to perform my Rap Guide to Evolution show at an off-Broadway theater, you know, 200 seats, 110 performances in 6 months, like name and lights off Broadway, not on Broadway. That's a theater sized delineation. But that was all because Mark said you should rap about the origin of species, and it caught on and became the thing I became known for. And then I just did a whole series of shows, and the Consciousness show and the Good Bayesian one was in the same theater several years later as I turned the rap guides into a series. But it really did just start like, can you do this? I like the idea. It's not something where I would just wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to rap about science.
Yeah.
It seemed weird to me, but it was an invitation. It was like, this is the event. We need entertainment. You're the one to write it. Come ready and I'll pay you and help you connect with lots of other scientists. And I predict, Bayesian, they will pay you too. So, and he didn't have that much of a budget. It was like a couple $1,000s. I'm going to work for 6 months to write an hour-long show for $2,000. I don't think so. But Mark, he laid it out to me. He was like, 200th anniversary of Charles Darwin's birth. It's also the 150th anniversary of the origin of species. If you do a good job with this evolution rap show, I bet you're going to get work all year as people book you to perform at their events. And he was right. I probably did 50 shows that year, all of them paid gigs on something I had written in the few months prior to the, to the first ever show. And it just became like, there was like 4 years where I did like 100 shows a year of just evolution rap. And that really set me up.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, that Mark, like he was quite a visionary there. That's pretty amazing. And I'm glad he did that.
Yeah, me too.
No, that's really awesome. And actually, how do you so let's talk about another thing I wanted to ask you, because I love the way you do that, because you're doing something called peer-reviewed rap. So can you tell listeners what it is and how it works? Because I know they will be sensible to that. There are a lot of academics, researchers in my audience. So when they hear peer review, I'm guessing they are listening even more.
Yeah, that comes from the first project again. So, when Mark Palin asked me if I could do Darwin themed raps, he put some caveats on it. He said, "Yeah, we'll put you on at this conference, but a lot of people misunderstand evolutionary biology and specifically natural selection and how it functions. We're not going to, we don't want you to come to this conference and rap about how evolution is, part of the spiritual trajectory of the universe as we all evolve towards greater compassion." That's a metaphorical use. We're talking about like how an organism's genome changes over time. And so he put this challenge to me. He was like, send me your lyrics and I'll make sure there's no scientific inaccuracies in your lyrics so that when you get on stage, we know that you're describing it right. And so then, and it was, once again, like, the peer-reviewed rap thing is Mark's coinage. At the first event when he was premiering, he's like, "Don't worry, I worked with this artist. I fact-checked his lyrics, so you're about to witness the first rap in history that's peer-reviewed." And it got a big laugh because it was mostly scientific colleagues. But I was backstage waiting to come on and start the show, and in my head I was like, peer-reviewed rap. That's awesome. That's my brand now. And then so I like put it on my website, and it became a kind of philosophy. Like it does fit with the whole egoless Buddhist worldview, because it's like, I'm not here to tell you what I think about things, except as a secondary, like, artistic and technique consideration. I'm here to tell you the scientific consensus on this topic and how the various ways in which you might react to it. And, so each project I've done since then that's scientific, I recruit an expert that is a researcher in the field, and I make sure they go over my lyrics and say, partially this is self-protective because I don't want to get on stage and sound like an idiot, and I don't have a scientific background. So I want to, make sure that I'm rep science when I communicate it, but also I found it really, it's an enriching process. I've made friends with lots of scientists who had a fun time going back and forth with me, working out the details of how the rap should work. And also it gives me clout, because if somebody's like, that's not how it works, I'm like, I take it up with the army that's marching right back here, the researchers. So people will go to bat to defend something I say in a rap song if it's controversial, because I've checked first to be sure that it represents a research, at least among a lot of professionals in an area, although there are still going to be controversies, right? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's why it's called consensus, and it's research. So but yeah, and I love that so much, and it resonates also so much with issues we've had here in France in the last year. With because it's one of the first time you have research in the making that is live on every show for 1 year, and so people are confusing a lot, confusing research and science, basically.
Yeah.
So research is science in the making, but science is something the Earth is round, you know how to make a plane fly, stuff like that.
Or at least you believe it with a very high probability.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, from the Bayesian point of view, exactly. But then it's not because something that there aren't any more questions, and then the questions that are left are what research is about. And so we had this confusion in France come up every day, basically. And so what you're doing, I think, is so amazing because it popularizes basically the scientific method and how the scientific sausage is made. So it's really amazing.
It's more important than the sausage itself, really. Obviously the Earth goes around the sun and not vice versa. There's some things that will not be overturned. Natural selection is not. There's no sort of competing hypothesis for design in nature that I've ever come across that holds any water. But lots of things will fall by the wayside as new evidence comes in, and that's fine. It's part of the process, right? But it's defending the method and how it works, and making sure people understand that it's an iterative process, a trial and error process, and
exactly.
And it's about confidence levels. This is another thing. I talk differently after becoming a Bayesian. That's why I was like, let me show you how to be a good Bayesian, but I was kind of showing myself how to be a good Bayesian too, because I would previously be like, evolution is a fact. And then after that, I'd be like, evolution is a fact insofar as science allows us to estimate the highest probabilities of what facts we can be sure are true. But, I've actually found there's a diplomacy benefit, because if you're talking to a creationist about evolution and you say evolution's a fact and you're dead wrong, the conversation is pretty much over. Whereas you could say, based on the preponderance of the evidence from all of evolutionary biology, it seems like the probability of evolution being right is extremely high. But but it's not 100, it's whatever I would estimate it as, 99.99999. But that means there's some possibility that it's not, you probably have to get into this is a simulation kind of scenarios to overturn some of the findings of science. But just talking in terms of probability brings people into the conversation in a way that certainty does not.
Yeah, and also it a lot, because then when you start saying, but it's normal, research is not certain, you can't be 100% certain and stuff like that, then people will say, aha, then I can say whatever I want. I'm just saying that it's a theory, it's like science are only theories. So I have a theory that the Earth looks like a potato, or like a donut or stuff like that, so I can do that. It's science. Well, actually, no, because then your theory has to be backed by the consensus and by evidence and by facts and stuff like that. So I think the framing also in probabilities is interesting, because you can say, maybe the Earth is a potato, but the probability that it is, given the evidence that we have, is super small compared to the evidence that it's round and there is 80% water and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and I find a useful framing is also what predictions would that make? If you believe that, then that would predict that going from a spaceship would show you that, but the spaceship stuff's all faked. Okay, well, then it would predict that, you would find this instrument responding in this way as you traverse the geographical region. Maybe we could run a test. As soon as you put things in that kind of a framework of what, how do you know that and what predictions does it make, you're on much more solid footing with the scientific method, because usually those tests have been done and people just don't know about it,
exactly. And also another thing I like to ask people is, just instead of debating on the facts, actually, as you said, because you see that as a fact, but the other person doesn't see that as a fact, actually. So instead of that, you're discussing about their priors, actually, asking them about why they came to develop what they think, and then often what I ask is, but then what would make you change your mind? What would it take to make you change your opinion? And so basically you're asking them about the prior. And if they have a prior that is like super extreme, like for instance, I believe that you, Baba, you can't be a good rapper because you don't have the right socioeconomic background, and just so I have a prior that is super extreme. So whatever you can do,
don't worry, it's very common.
Yeah, but exactly. But so that means that whatever you do, you can't move my prior. So in that case, you can either discuss on the prior with this person believing that, like how did she come to develop that belief, or you stop discussing and you go get a coffee or something like that,
Yeah. Well, and with a lot of, with anti-evolution beliefs, the prior is caused by decades of religious indoctrination. So the why is not, it's based on, and also I think a lot of anti-science stuff just comes from the generalized trust your intuition and trust your gut messaging that's all through culture. That's like, if you believe it, it must be true. And, look inside for the answers and all that stuff. Like there's a real reframing that's needed to question your intuitions as the default instead of believing your intuitions as the default. Because frankly, like the sun looks like it's moving, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
The easiest analogy for like why you can't just trust your perceptions without a gut check.
Yeah, definitely. And just a spoiler, but I have Chunpeng Lao who already gave me some topics for your freestyle rap at the end. So that's very, very nice. And actually, I remind people, that you can think of some topics to throw to Baba for his rap freestyle at the end of the show. You just write them in the comments, and then we'll he'll go from there. And so that's so I love these topics so much. And actually, something I'm wondering now is, do you have sometimes a proof of the efficiency of what you're doing? Like this is provocative, but like, because you're doing that also to popularize the scientific method, the scientific topics, and so on, and scientific consensus. And so, did you already have people coming to you and telling you, "Oh, that was so enlightening to me," like your rap guide to evolution, for instance, and I went into reading some Darwin stuff and so on, and now I love that, and I see that more clearly. So did that happen to you?
Yes, I have created apostasy with the rap guide to evolution. Absolutely. I only know it from YouTube comments, or some people have told me in person anecdotally as well. But if you look at my rap guide to evolution music videos on YouTube and read the comments, you will see people saying, I used to believe in creationism. I listened to this album. I read a bunch of the books that you did, and now I'm an evolutionist to the core. And that's satisfying to find people saying that, for sure. It's you never know when you're making something whether you're going to change any minds with it. My baseline is just to entertain people. Like, I hope it gets out there and changes people's minds, but I'm trying to fill an unfilled niche, like highly scientifically literate entertainment, like fun for nerds. The fun for nerds thing. There's some stuff out there, but there's not enough. People feel like intellectually deprived by the entertainment environment, or at least I do, and I assume other people do as well. Yeah. So, it's, you preach to the crier first, but if everybody's loving something and you feel like you disagree with it, but everybody's loving it, that in itself will sow the seeds of curiosity about, like, is this merely like just some kind of, equivalent of a revival where everybody shouts their common beliefs? But in the science raps, I'm trying to talk about what you just said, the why. Why do we think this? Well, we try, the hypothesis that it's another way would lead to this, and the hypothesis that another way would lead to that. So we believe it because the evidence shows this. And, that I think it does get through.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. I think the world needs more of that, especially right now. This is actually something that will be very curious to me. I don't really know how science and the scientific method will come out of this COVID crisis, whatever you want to call it. This is because at the same time we are exposed to much more science in the news, at least in France. I don't know for the US. And so that's good because people get exposed to a scientific method and how research goes and what's the difference with science. But at the same time, you also hear a ton of just bullshit that's taken by some politicians or other people who just want to say that what they already believe is just so true. And yeah, I don't know if the scientific method will come out of that better understood, or just if people will say, actually science is like politics or any other opinion. You can just think whatever you want because look at all these experts, they just don't know what to do and how to solve that. So it's something.
The problem is when science does a good job, then you could act like it would have happened anyway, right? Like all the sort of pandemic deniers will wait until the vaccines have proliferated, and then everyone goes out again, and then they'll say, "See, it was all fine the whole time. We never needed to worry."
Yeah, and it's also like you forget, like it becomes like breathing, having vaccines since you're a child, not needing to have 10 children when you're a parent because half of them will die before they reach 10. Like this doesn't happen anymore at least in Western in Europe and in the US. But we forget about that and all the awful diseases that the vaccines we have right now prevent from happening. And as you said, we don't see that and we forgot about that. And so it's really the kind of thing. I just when I take the plane, each time I take the plane, I'm amazed, and I remind myself of how unbelievable it is that this thing that is so heavy is going up in the sky, and this is something that human beings have been wanting to do for centuries, and now we're able to do that, and we did that thanks to the scientific method. And each time
it takes effort, though, doesn't it? That kind of thinking is effortful thinking. Yeah. It's much more natural to just adjust, to always sort of follow the shifting baseline, and you remind yourself how much things have changed. That's just part of our psychology, obviously. Yeah. But you're right. It is absolutely. And after COVID, it's going to be even more remarkable.
Yeah.
I haven't been in a plane in a year. It's going to seem
yeah.
Not only in the context of the last several millennia, but just, thank goodness I can travel again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I mean, this is going to be a relief. And actually, let me ask you now, just checking. Okay, yeah, the time. Don't want to take too much time from you, but this is such a nice conversation. I could go on for hours. I wanted to ask you something a bit more into your process and how you came to that.
Hey, Alex, I lost you for a second. I heard influential and process, but there was some scramble. Yeah. You want to say the question again?
Yeah, let's do that again. It's the interviewing in time of COVID. I wanted to ask you which authors or songs were particularly influential to you.
Rap wise, I'd say the first album from Nas, Illmatic, and the first album from the Notorious B.I.G., Ready to Die, and the first album from Eminem, the Slim Shady LP. Those were all ones where, I come to rap as a writer, so I really gravitate towards the storytelling rappers, the ones that sort of paint a picture of what their life is like in song, and that's what I'm trying to do as much as I can as well. And authors, Sean Carroll is a great science communicator. Richard Dawkins has really brought me into the evolution. Someone said philosophy of science. I'm a big fan of Dan Dennett. I've read every one of Dan Dennett's books and try to, bring his thinking process in. Steven Pinker on sort of psychology and human history, the long arc of human history. And David Sloan Wilson really brought me into some new thinking about evolution and how it works in terms of cooperation as well as competition. Those are a few. I'm mostly a nonfiction reader, except for Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm the same. So I love that. I mean, we really have to put all these recommendations into the show notes for people. That sounds really amazing. And actually, also, I'm wondering about your, and just a comment, I'm getting more topics for your rap freestyle. I can tell you that there are some fun stuff in there. Just coming back to your writing process, I'm curious about that. Like, how do you choose topic and how do you write about them? And like, are you more of a, how does it go? Are you more into the profusion of inspiration, or do you have a process that you get through for each song, or you just go with the flow? How do you go?
Usually it's process based for me and project based. So I'm like, I don't usually even work on a project unless I know what it's for and where it's going. Like the premiere will be here, or I've got to deliver the track by this time. I have a really hard time just like writing about whatever I feel like, I'm always like, why? What's the point? What's this for? So each song is, if it's part of an album, it's like, what do you need to include to tell the story of this topic? Or if it's a song, then it's more condensed. But that's my process, is like, frankly, it's pretty much exactly the same as what I did in grad school as an English literature master's student. Like read all the literature on the topic, synthesize a thesis from where you see like common threads between those various secondary sources, and make an argument in essay form. Only now my essays are songs and albums, but it's really, it's a kind of like proliferate and distill the information through the funnel of the way I think and what I want to say about it. But it's, that's the process for me.
Okay. So you're like really more into an intellectual process of doing things. That resonates with me. I think if I were a rapper, I would do the same thing.
Well, and just to add to that, like I don't want to come across like an automaton. It's not like I have no feelings. It's just that I'm always expressing my feelings in the context of some kind of frame or pragmatism or task. So, once it's my job to write about a thing, then I'll tell you everything I think and feel about that thing. But I have a kind of like, what's the point response to just like, how do you feel in general kind of questions.
No, I clearly understand that. Okay, when maybe quick question before we talk of another project of yours, and then we'll go into some rap. Quick question. Maybe what was the most difficult song for you to write, and which song are you the most proud of?
Okay, so I got two different answers. The most difficult song for me to write is one no one's heard yet. And I have a new album. I will officially announce it on the Learning Bayesian Stats podcast. It's called Bright Future, and it's coming out, this spring, probably in about 6 weeks. And one of the songs on the new record is called Cloud Feedback. And it's about the feedback effects that clouds and entrainment and convection have on climate sensitivity estimation. So we know clouds cool the planet down, but we know the warming effects of global warming are changing the relationship and the height and the thickness and all the dynamics of the clouds globally. And how does a model accommodate for the feedback mechanisms between clouds and precipitation and evaporation and heat loss? And it's the complexities of it. I wrote so many drafts of this song and sent them to the scientist, and had the scientist be like, well, it doesn't exactly work like that. And then I'd have to come back and rewrite it again and again. And, I got it. I find like draft 7 of the lyrics. He was like, yep, that pretty much summarizes the state of it. And that's the reason the IPCC estimates the warming of a doubling of CO2 at somewhere between 1.5 and 4.5 degrees, which is a huge range. Like, talk about scientific uncertainty. Where are we going to land? Somewhere on that continent. So that's, I wanted to try to explain that factor in the scientific predictions, and mostly it's about clouds. So I can't wait to see what people think of my cloud feedback song, because I worked extremely hard on it. And the one I'm most proud of, I think, is the song I mentioned previous, Performance Feedback Revision, because it was such a simple, like, basic concept, and it's such a sort of didactic title for, it's like not a catchy title. Performance feedback revision, but it's definitely had the most unexpected resonance with people. Like, I have 2 different people that emailed me a photo of a tattoo that has performance feedback revision in it, like coincidentally and separately. One person told me that they had problems with alcoholism, and they used performance feedback revision as a daily mantra to get through that and improve their life and save their marriage and everything. So it's just like, it just keeps coming back. Oh yeah, there's like CEOs of tech companies that force their employees to listen to performance feedback revision as the design and iteration principle for the way they're changing their code. Like compile, test it on users, and then go back and change it. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, I remember exactly where I was when I thought of the idea for a song, and I put it together and I performed it. And then it's just totally taken on a life of its own. That's really fun to watch.
Huh. Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure everybody can't wait to hear, to listen to your new album. So really looking forward to that. When is it coming out?
I'm gonna say May 15th, and hopefully I don't get proven wrong. But I have a whole process in place, and actually I'm going to be launching a Kickstarter soon where people can pre-order it. And I recommend, if the Kickstarter is not over by the time this comes out, I encourage you all to go there and support. If you like science rap and you want to see more of it in the world, you can get a copy. There will be vinyl, and you can be among the first to hear the record.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely put the link to that Kickstarter in the show notes. That sounds like a good use of our money. And yeah, actually, I want to talk now about one of your recent project. Like, so there is this new album, but you also recently created a company, if I understood correctly, called Event Rap, and I really love what you folks do. So can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Event Rap is a kind of pandemic pivot project, because I did like 130 live shows for audiences in 2019 alone, and then 1 year ago, every show gets canceled. I'm sitting at home like, what am I supposed to do now? I'm working on some music videos. I get commissioned to write on some science topics. But what I started doing is performing Zoom gigs, and I would join a meeting and I would listen to what everyone said in the meeting, and I would write a song really fast, like in 2 hours, to summarize everyone's comments in the meeting and reference all the speakers. And then I would be the sort of surprise grand finale of the event. And I was doing, some of them were boring business meetings, or, professional conferences for scientists, or, I even did a funeral recently, and I did like a birthday party. And, it's just a weird, unexpected thing that came out of the pandemic that I've just come to love. I love doing it. It's such a fun challenge to create a rap in 2 hours that speaks on the collective experience of a group of people that are all around the world sharing a virtual experience. So you can see a bunch of videos on eventrap.com, and I'm sort of rolling it out as a service that can be applied to any virtual meeting with a group of people sharing some kind of experience. And I also have been recruiting rappers. So I now have a dozen artists that are are signed or are in the process of signing to Event Rap, and they're all going to be offering this service as well. It's another, like when I talked about good Bayesian, I was like, I shared it with these rappers. I was like, you want to rap about Bayesian? And they were both like, yes. And then, there was the same with this. I was like, do you want to rap for some Zoom meetings about, whatever the topic is, as a sort of random paid gig, and every rapper has been like, such a cool idea, let's go for it. So yeah, I hope it becomes really big, because my motto is every event needs rap. And you know, we've all got Zoom fatigue, and imagine every Zoom meeting with a 5-minute rap summary at the end that makes everyone leave with a smile on their face. That's what we're trying to do as a, you know, as a talent agency.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I watched one of your videos at the end. I think it was for Harvard Business School meeting. At the end, you were summarizing the meeting. It's really funny. I encourage people to go and check it out.
The best part about those videos is the way people react, because they don't expect it. You know, they're like in a serious meeting, and the host goes, "We have a special guest," and I'm like, "What's up, everybody?" And I throw the beat on, and everyone's like, "Whoa!" And then they start going, "Oh, oh, oh," and you know, just you see all the facial reactions. It's really fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. And actually, I'm wondering then, because you emphasized the importance of the audience and the feedbacks from the audience at the beginning of the show, but how does it change your experience as an artist to perform like that remotely? Like, you do that by necessity, of course. You can't perform right now in front of an audience, but still, how does it change the experience for you?
You know, I almost forget what it's like to perform live at this point, because I've done so many shows virtually. But what I will say about it is it's unexpectedly awesome. Like, I actually
really?
did a radio interview. I tweeted right at the beginning of the pandemic, all my gigs are canceled, I guess I'm staying home, or something like that. And then right away, CBC Radio, the Canadian broadcaster, reached out to me, and they're like, "Oh, we're doing a story on artists during the pandemic. You know, would you like to talk to us?" So I did a whole radio interview. And in the interview, I was like, virtual gigs are a non-starter. I am never going to be performing virtually, because you got to feel the crowd and hear the crowd. So I'm going to just wait this out. I'll like work on some albums, projects, and videos as best I can, and you know, see you on the other side. Basically, like, stuck my foot huge, because I was so wrong. And the thing I've unexpectedly come to love about virtual performing is the immediacy and the intimacy of the camera right in everybody's face. So when I used to perform live, I would be like interacting with the front couple rows in a theater or in a music venue, and back beyond that, mostly dark, you know? So you're trying to find a few people that are having a good time. But when you're doing a Zoom gig, you can see like 16 or 25 faces, and you got their immediate details of their emotional reactions to every single thing that you say. And you know, imagine doing a live gig where you had a camera in everyone's face, and you had like a pair of Google Glass type virtual glasses, so that you could have a zoomed in image of everyone in the audience and not treat some of them as far away and some as close. That's what a Zoom gig is like. So I've been, you know, I really love the Zoom gallery audience experience at this point. And it's going to be interesting when I go back to live, whether I'm sort of like, you know, maybe it's like heroin to methadone, you know, maybe the live gigs won't cut it anymore, and I'll be like, let's all go virtual again. I don't know. Might be a little ways off, but it's been interesting. I've definitely had an education in what matters over the past year.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, you updated your priors pretty aggressively right here.
I must have, if I'm starting a business and like putting all this investment and time and energy into this, is going to be a thing, you know, going forward for a long time. Even if the pandemic ends with full vaccination and everything goes back to normal, I think we've all learned that we were wasting a lot of time and money traveling to meetings. You know, like the world is not going to go back fully to the way it was a year ago.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so before we go into some rap songs live here, like there are different kind of raps, right, that you can perform on these kind of events. So like for someone like me who don't know about that at all, can you summarize some of them so that we have an idea of how you can improvise on the spot like that? I find that really fascinating.
Sure. So everything in the event rap catalog of services is based on something rappers already do to a certain degree. So the main service is a wrap up where you write a song in a couple of hours and it summarizes the event. So you're sort of listening and writing at the same time and getting ready to perform at the end. One thing I can't do is I can't do a wrap up of an event that I was speaking at. I have to be sort of like anonymously in the background listening to everybody. But if I were, obviously I haven't been sitting here writing the whole time, so I couldn't do a rip of what we just talked about. But if I had been listening to someone else that was your guest, I could do a wrap-up summary of any episode of the Learn Bayesian Stats podcast where I give you back all the things you talked about in rhyme form. So that's a wrap-up. There's one called a custom wrap, which is where you commission me. Like I had made the Good Bayesian song before you launched the podcast, but if I hadn't, and if you had reached out and said, I'm doing a Bayesian podcast and I need a Bayesian song, I could have said, no worries, I'll write one for you. And I could have written Good Bayesian and it would have been a perfect fit. Just happened to go the other way around. There's something called a freestyle set, which is where the audience gives me topics to rap about. And that's what we're going to do at the end of this episode. So I'll get you, because I think I see you can like pull things from the chat and throw them up on the screen, right? So I'll just let you feed me, like give me another phrase or word every 5 to 10 seconds, and I will just riff on everything I see in real time, improvised. Those are the main services. I've also got something up there called a catalog set, which is a little tongue in cheek because that's every rap show that's ever been done. That's not event rap. A rapper writes a song and performs their song. They're doing a catalog set. It's like from your back catalog. And then also I've been hosting events sometimes where I'll like interview scientists or guests and then also do raps about them and stuff. So that's the other service, but the top three are the main ones.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that really sounds like fun. Before going into that, I'll ask you the 2 questions I ask every guest at the end of the show, but of course, it's not going to be the end of the show, but I have to ask you those because I love them and I love to have the distribution of answers. So the first one is, if you had unlimited time and resources, which problem would you try to solve?
I might say cancer, actually. I feel like of all of the medical problems, cancer is the one that sort of stands out as so pernicious. It's so scary for people. There's like no enemy to hate. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like lots of infections, COVID, you're like, we must defeat COVID. But cancer is like your own cells changing. And, it's all through the natural world. Like other organisms die of cancer. And I just feel like it would be one thing that would take a huge burden of suffering off the world if we could figure that one out. So maybe I'm thinking small. Maybe it should be like, avoidance of civilizational collapse. But maybe I'm just optimistic that we'll take care of that one anyway. So I would do cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. But that's of course, definitely something that's useful, and I think you're the first one to answer that on the show. So interesting, actually. And the second question is, if you could have dinner with any great scientific mind, dead, alive, or fictional, who would it be?
I might have to say Charles Darwin. Just he's the polymath. It sounds too obvious. I was almost tempted to say Wallace, because what's interesting about Alfred Russel Wallace is he co-discovered natural selection, and then he kind of like became more and more spiritualist as he went older. And by the end, he was arguing that natural selection explains the origins of our bodies, but not our minds. And he believed in a kind of like divine ensoulment that was necessary to explain human artistic creativity and genius and inspiration and, kindness and sense of the numinous and stuff like that. And, I wouldn't mind like having a chance to interview Wallace about that and ask him where do you think your theory falls short of explaining all of human proclivities insofar as they don't have like animal analogs? But, I might get frustrated by that conversation, whereas I bet I could talk to Darwin all day.
Yeah, I can guess that. And again, a nice answer. And again, I think you're the first one to answer that. Oh, so two first samples from these 2 questions. That's awesome. Okay, now I think it's time.
Switch into performance mode. I've been so relaxed here.
Yeah,
I gotta get animated.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I ask you that, but you remember how you first got introduced to Bayesian statistics? I'm guessing it's to write good Bayesian, but
Yeah, it was researching the Rap Guide to Consciousness album, and I knew I had already committed to the project. I had my release date in advance, and I spent the 6 or 7 months prior to the first performance reading everything I could on the neuroscience of consciousness and the best theories of how our subjective experiences are produced by interactions in the brain. And I kept coming across Bayes. And sometimes it would be in the context of the brain is an inference engine that builds models about likely causes of sensory inputs. And sometimes it would be in the context of why is science the right model to study the brain? And how do we understand human physiology in the first place? And the process of discovery that scientific inference gives us has been described as a Bayesian process. So, it was that like seemingly disparate but still related to the same project at a certain, I'll tell you just as a side story. I resisted it for a long time. I was like reading all these books about consciousness, and I was like Bayes. And then I spent a little while like trying to figure out how the Bayesian theorem worked, and I kept getting confused, and I don't really have a good math background, and so I was like, not going to talk about Bayes on this album. And then I kind of reading more Bayes. God damn it! All right, I'm going to talk about Bayes. And then I had to really crash course how to present because in the show I actually put the theorem up on the screen, and then I like replace the priors and the outcomes with different sort of pop culture examples to show how it works, and walk people through the concept so that I can apply it in the rest of the show. And I'm glad I went over that hurdle, because the response has been great to it, but it wasn't intuitive at first. Now it is, but it wasn't at first.
Yeah, I see what you mean. This is funny. Okay, I have a little surprise for you just before we go to the song. I have some other people here who joined me, so that you have a little more faces to rap.
Hello.
So I'm happy to introduce you to Michel Ostege, a fellow PyMC car developer and fellow Bayesian, of course, and Tyler Birch. Very happy to have you on the show. Tyler is a patron of the show, and he helped me test out the setup. I also have someone else again. I think we have Brendan. We don't have your camera, but if you can, that'd be awesome. That's great. Glad that we have quite a nice setup here. So when you want, Baba, you can start rapping some good Bayesian stuff.
All right, here we go. I got my beat set up here. Just make sure it's in the right place. Boom. All right. Is that coming through all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Turn myself up a bit here. Yeah. Let me show you how to be a good Bayesian. Change your predictions after taking information in. And if you're thinking I'll be less than amazing, let's adjust those expectations. So what's a Bayesian? A Bayesian cares about evidence and doesn't jump to assumptions based on intuitions and prejudice. A Bayesian makes predictions on the best available info and adjusts the probability, cause every belief is provisional. Cause when I kick a flow, mostly I'm watching eyes widen, maybe cause my likeness lowers expectations of tight rhyming. How would I know unless I'm rhyming in front of a bunch of blind men, dropping placebo-controlled science like Richard Feynman? Is it because of my looks or the fact that I talk like I'm mad for books? Either way, in the ecosystem of rap, I'm the platypus. So my patron saying on stage is Reverend Bayes. Just watch me update the predictions in everyone's brains. I'm teaching a crowd about probabilistical statistical science. For instance, if the ex-president's a degenerate liar, remember your priors, right? Just keep them updated, cause one of these days assumptions we're gonna make, especially when the ex-president is talking about non-citizens, Muslims, and other victims of dog whistling, bigoted, unconscious bias. bias. Yeah, unreliable information. The antidote is to learn how to think like a Bayesian. So let me show you how to be a good Bayesian. Change your predictions after taking information. And if you're thinking I'll be less than amazing, let's adjust those expectations. So let me show you how to be a good Bayesian. Change expectations after taking fresh data in. And if you're thinking I'll be less than amazing, let's adjust those expectations. All right.
Awesome. That's so nice. Yeah, and like I have Colin Carroll there on the chat who noticed that you updated the the lyrics. This is great.
Well, you change your lyricism after taking fresh data in when the presidents change. Yeah.
That's awesome. So for the last beat, we're gonna do a freestyle, right? So what's the process? I'm gonna throw you some topics on the screen. You're gonna improvise on that, right? Riff on that, and yeah, I don't know for how much time as you want. I'm guessing it's not gonna be for 1 hour in any case. So
yeah, a few minutes. I'll follow the flow of the words that you send, and I'll just rock it over the same exact beat again, and try to keep up with the technical sophistication of some of the comments I see coming in.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, let's go then. I think the first one I had, was from Junpeng Lao, who asked you if you could run about Python, about nuts, PyMC, and so on.
All right, I'll do my best here. Let's go. Yo. People sometimes ask, what planet am I on? I'm on the planet where everybody's using Python. That's how we do it. I'm one of these MCs that could even drop rhymes about that PMC, that PyMC3. I just freak it easily. I'm telling people right now, no one's as deep as me when it comes to the scientific stuff. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is how it goes right now. I'm freestyling. I'm going nuts. Yeah, this is the ergodicity when I'm explicitly rocking stuff right now. This is hip-hop authenticity. That's the way that I rock it. Yeah, I'm just working these beats with my brain circuitry. I'm trying to make decisions under uncertainty, like what's gonna happen in the next second under COVID. I think I'm with everybody when I say I don't know it, but I know that science will probably help us with this scene, because we've got people researching right now, catching those vaccines. This is the way that I do this right now. I'm mad serious. I'm saying I am a big fan of wide posteriors. Can't you even reason that I'm one of those type of guys? I like wide posteriors, and I cannot lie. All you other brothers can't deny big butts. Yeah, that's the way that I rock it. I'm taking it right now. I'm throwing it straight up out my pocket. Like, what's the topic? I'm sorry, but I'm just saying stuff like a bad relationship. I guess we're now breaking up. I mean, the signal is starting to get a little bit fried, but that's okay, because I'm still coming with rhymes. Yeah, I just bust them sometimes as I freestyle infinitely. I just rip these raps, so everybody download this podcast and learn Bayesian stats. Yeah, that's how it goes. This is how I go. I'm a rap fiend. I say, everybody out there, when they get a chance, take your vaccine. Yeah, that's what I'm saying right now in this rap. Know what I mean? I'm probably super hyper because I'm jacked up on caffeine. That's what's inside of this right now. Yeah, this beautiful coffee cup that's covered with these hearts. I hope you're feeling all this love. This is the way that I rock it right now. Yeah, I pop up. People listen. They're like, oh my God, I want more rap. This is not enough. This is how I go right. This is how I go right. This is how I freestyle, which means these are rhymes that I don't write. They just come off the top of my head as I improvise. I could rap about R and BRMs when I kick the rhymes, definitely. Yeah, these are freestyles I'm sparking, but I'm sorry, I do not know all your hacker jargon, so I don't even know what those even stand for, but that's okay, because I could pull out a sword like I was King Arthur. That's right, I will take on every challenger. That was a nice sword. I think it was called Excalibur. Yeah, this is the way that I go when I'm just maybe trying to say so I'm sorry for King Arthur that your wife was unfaithful. That was true of Guinevere. This is how I said it here. People listen to my raps, they're like it's both explicit and weird, but how I do it is my brain always works, it never fails. And plus I was originally trained on those Canterbury tales. Is how it goes, yeah, that's right. In my brain I store stuff and then I Bayesian take it out like Alex Andorra when he's hosting the podcast all about the Bayesian stats. I'm Baba Brinkman and I'm known to go kind of crazy with raps, and I'm freestyling. I'm on this spot right now in Long Island, but hopefully in the future people won't have to dial in, they'll just be able to do it live and come to my shows and realize that it's gonna have to be infinite scientific rhyming. Yeah, these are rhymes that I have to bust. If you get frustrated, maybe your chains are stuck, I don't know, I'm just gonna have to make this a lyrical emergence out of my brain circuits. We gotta fix those divergences when it's not right. This is me, I'm straight up freestyling. If there's a problem with your code, then you probably want to compile it and then see whether it works and test it and retest it. Performance feedback revision, right? That's how it works, there's no question. The prior specifications, I'm so much dedicated to hip hop. It's like when I flow, I feel like I'm medicated. I'm meditated or medicated or one or the other, but it's elevated to another level. This is how I go, I break it down to the basics. Yeah, this is Baba Brinkman with freestyle raps. It's been kind of nice to interact with this here little chat, so I'm gonna have to rip it. Science and hip hop and all that. Big up to all the listeners of Alex's podcast.
Well done. Well done. Thank you very much, Baba. That was so amazing. It's bad that we can't really cheer and so on, but
my the roar of the crowd. It's I'm inferring it. I don't need to hear it because I infer it.
You can see our faces, and I can tell you there are a lot of comments here where people just loved what just happened. So thank you so much. I can just show you on the screen some of the comments, but we also had, and we this one was quite good. I just saw it, but Zoom meetings all day, that would have been awesome.
It's the redemption of the Zoom meeting.
Yeah,
all you need is rap.
Yeah, I had a lot of them still. Heteroskedasticity, that would have been quite hard.
Throw me that one.
Yeah.
I smash it. I'm really deep when I'm rapping. I'm skillfully bringing all you that heterospasticity. I couldn't read it because it's not on the screen.
No, this is awesome. Thank you so much, Baba. This was so great having you on. I'm very glad to have done that. I wish you all the luck with Event Trap and all your projects, and I wanna thank you all for thank you for all your work explaining and popularizing the scientific method. That was much needed with the COVID epidemic, as we saw. I also want to thank the audience for tuning in. That was so nice. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. You participated in the comments and so on. So I'm super glad about that. I mean, the freestyle, there was too many comments. I couldn't keep up with them. Yeah, so if you like this live stream format, well, guess what? I might just do it again. So give me your feedback. Of course, share the episode with your friends and colleagues when it comes out. As usual, I'll put resources in the show notes and a link to your website for those who want to dig deeper. Baba, we are both gonna hang around a bit just after we stop live streaming. But for all the other people, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you again, Baba, for taking the time and being on this show.
I really enjoyed it. And Alex, thank you for having the vision to make my rap song your podcast theme song. I hope it's the first of many, but it was the first. So you get credit for being an early adopter.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for doing that. People are thanking you, as you can see. So yeah, thank you very much. Bye, people on the live stream. And yeah, I hope we'll be able to do that soon. Bye, guys.